guys, I hope you're doing well. Today I thought I would reflect on how many times I have moved. Sorry, I chips on my teeth. With the process of moving and everything still very fresh in my mind, that was just a topic that I thought of and something I thought you might enjoy. So, yeah, that's what I'm going to talk about today. I did not move very much during my childhood. So, I was born in Tampa, Florida. I was not born in Indiana. I was born in Tampa, Florida. And at the age of 1.5, my parents made the decision to move back to Indiana. So my parents are both originally from Indiana. Their families are from Indiana. My dad had gotten an internship and then had gotten a job in Florida out of college, and so that's where my parents moved after getting married, and therefore that's where I was born. And they made the very wise decision to move back to the States because I now know from personal experience having a family is very challenging, and then not to have extended family close by can even make that more challenging. So, moved back to Indiana, from Florida to Indiana when I was 1.5. We lived in an apartment when we were in Florida, so that was, one move. And then when we moved to Indiana for about 4 months, we lived with my grandparents. So that's 2 moves. And then we moved into the first house that I remember in a little town called Fulton. And we lived in that house until I was in 3rd grade. And then in 3rd grade, my parents finished building a house on a hill in the country outside of Fulton and between Fulton and Rochester. And that is the house that I lived in until the day I got married. And so in my childhood, I did not move around a lot. Now, in upper high school, I think I was 16, 17, 18, I spent my summers at camp. So I lived at camp for the summers, but where my parents were, that solid home of where I would be otherwise was consistent. It did not change. Once my parents moved from Fulton to outside of Fulton, they stayed put. And that's something I'm very grateful for, because as you go through these changes and transitions as a kid, it's just nice to have consistency in things that do not change. But then I went to college. And college is where, no, let me back up. The second half of my junior year of high school is where the moving really picked up in my life. I started working at camp, so I was away during the summers, the whole entire summer, and then I transferred to the Indiana School for the Blind. So I would get on a bus on Sunday afternoon at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, have a 2.5-hour bus ride to the Indiana School for the Blind, and I would be there from Sunday night to Friday afternoon. Then I'd get on a bus again, and then I'd go home, be home for less than 48 hours, and do it again, and do it again, and do it again. So moving, packing, transitioning, that's where that really started for me. And you either love packing and are totally okay with it, or you dread it and absolutely hate it. And I think I'm more on the dreaded side of it. It's not something I enjoy. Honestly, excuse me, when it came for packing and moving here, we did it very last minute and just threw it in suitcases and then brought it here and put it in place. So, but it worked. So that started my second half of my junior year. I moved to a different school and I lived out of the suitcase every week, and it was hard. There was even a house parent that sat there and said, well, remember that this isn't your home. You know, don't bring too much stuff. Like, this isn't your home. But it's like, this is where I was spending the majority of my week. You know, I wasn't even in my parents' home more than 48 hours. So that was really, it was tough. But looking back on it now, that really prepared me for the life I have at this point. And so I graduated high school. Actually, a semester later, I ended up retaking math, and so that was a little rough, but I graduated high school December 2009, and then I started college January 2010 at Huntington University. And so that was another move. You know, I had moved away really from home the second half of my junior year, and then I go to Huntington, which Huntington was an hour and a half away from my parents' house, so it was a little closer. But it was still, you know, another packing up, going through stuff. And I did that for a year. And then I moved back to my parents' house for like 3 weeks. And then I moved to camp for the summer. And then I moved back to Huntington for a year. And then I packed up again, moved home for a few weeks, and then I moved to camp. And then there were some things that happened at Huntington that I just realized that, you know, maybe the Lord's just not calling me to be at Huntington, and maybe that's not where I should be. So I ended up transferring schools. And so then I went from camp to pretty much moving into Grace College. So then I was at Grace for a year, and then camp for the summer, Grace for a year, camp for the summer, I was at Grace for 2 years. Okay. Anyways, I graduated in 2013. So moving, packing. And then I graduated, went to my parents' house for a little bit, went to camp, worked at camp up until 3 days before my wedding, and then went back to my parents' house before the wedding, got ready, had the wedding, and then went on a short honeymoon. Then we moved in at camp together. We're there until the end of the summer. And this is really where moving and packing and things just got crazy. And so we had joined Whitcliffe as individuals in college. So we knew that life was about to get crazy. So after camp, we moved into this 3-bedroom apartment. So there was a place for our bed, there was a living room space, and then there was a bathroom. There was no kitchen. Yeah. So it was just an awkward, had to make do situation. I think we were proud of it just because it was our first space, just us together. And so that was exciting, and you know, we were newlyweds and just super in love, and so that helped that situation. But it was not ideal, and I do not suggest it to anybody. And then that situation was just hard. We didn't have a washer and dryer, we didn't have a kitchen space, and we didn't have a good landlord. She just wasn't in a good spot. And so with all that and all the roughness, Rebecca said at camp, hey, you know, we have this other house at camp, you know, that's not used when it's not the camp season. You know, why don't you come and use it and rent it? And, you know, it helps me out, it helps the camp out, it helps you guys out, and that kind of thing. And so we moved back to camp. And that's where we stayed until we ended up moving overseas for the first time. So, and it was a really cute house, really enjoyed it. So then we were at camp, then we were at Davao, here in Davao for our first year. And then we went back to the States for the summer. And I believe we ended up going back and working at camp, which was crazy. Yeah, we worked at camp for the summer. And so we were living there. And then our first year, let me back up. Our first year in Davao, we lived in an apartment behind the soccer field. It was a nice little apartment. It was, you know, cute. It was fine. It was just the two of us. But the stairs were steep. We had rats that were on the roof and mice and things, and so that was hard. The stairs were just scary, and so that was hard for me. So we had the opportunity to move after being here in Davao for a semester. So we moved to an apartment that had stairs outside. Like, you would walk up to the apartment and there were stairs outside, but once you were in the apartment, you did not have to deal with stairs. So we lived there for the second semester. And then after coming back from the summer, we moved to another apartment in that same apartment complex. And then we went on furlough. Thomas was born. You know, we said we want to have some family time, some time to figure out things. And so we went back to the States for a year. And that's when we lived in the mission house of one of our churches. And absolutely loved that little house. It was so cute and just had character. It was, you know, older, but it was just really special because it was our first, like, house, you know. Where we had lived at camp was like a dormitory situation that we had turned into our home. And so this place we lived at, this mission house, was an old parsonage that they had turned into a mission house. And so it was a blessing. It was such a cute little house, and it meant a lot to us. And so that was a lot of fun. And then we made the decision to return to the Philippines. And we had a friend that was leaving the Philippines. And so she said, hey, you're coming back, I'm leaving, why don't you just move into the apartment that I'm in? And so it was really nice. We got to move into a fully furnished apartment. It, you know, she was just paid her a flat amount, and we have this fully furnished apartment to move into. And so that was really great. You know, less to worry about, less concerns and things like that. And we were fine until the end of the school year, or close to the end of the school year. And then we ended up getting robbed. And the feeling of just having the place that you feel like you should feel safe, you should have nothing to worry about, you should just be able to sleep at night and it'll all be okay. Yeah, that was just taken from us. I had a really hard time sleeping at night, and it was just really hard for a time. And so we ended up getting a dog, and I sat there and said, you know, like, because of this situation, because our landlord didn't really care, wasn't willing to do different security things for us, I sat there and said, you know what, we're gonna move. And so I had mentioned that prayer request of wanting to move to one of my students, and they knew that they were moving out of the house that they were in. And so they said, well, you can come look at our house and, you know, see if it's somewhere you want to move. And that is where we lived before here, right before where we live right now. And so we lived in that yellow house, which we absolutely loved. It was, you know, 3 bedrooms, no stairs, 2 CRs, or we call them CRs here, 2 restrooms, just great, and had a wonderful outside space, and it meant a lot to us. It was a nice little place, and we lived there for almost 2 years, and now we live here. And so yeah, I guess one of the things that made me think about this video and wanting to do it was, you know, the fact of, with everything happening, you know, we've talked, we've thought, you know, is the Lord calling us to stay here a few more years, or does the Lord want us to do something else? Or, you know, with my great grandma Scales passing away, you know, is the Lord directing us to, you know, move back closer to my family and possibly, you know, look into buying her house? Or, you know, there's just been all these different things that we've thought about, and there's definitely been no decisions made. If anything, we've come to the conclusion that we're probably not buying a house anytime soon, because we just don't have any money. But yeah, it just makes you, you know, think about all the different places that we've lived. And I'll admit, like, the last few days I'm just like, oh, I don't want to do this again. We've been here 5 years, and we've moved 5 times, and it just, you know, it starts to wear on you, and you just, I don't know, get a little discouraged and sit there and think, oh Lord, please don't have me do this again. I don't want to do it again. But I also have to remember that, you know, this is the life that we're called to right now, and if the Lord asks us to move and go and do, we need to follow His lead, and we need to honor and respect what He has called us to. So yeah, sorry that I know it's maybe a little bit of rambling and back and forth, but just wanted to let you know I have moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 times, something like that in my lifetime, 14, 15 times, and a lot of back and forths on the summers and things. So yeah, I guess that's just the life of a missionary, and a life of somebody that's just trying to do their best to follow the Lord's leading. So that's it for today's video. I hope you have a great day, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye. God bless.